2 weeks ago in Iowa, work began on the Dakota Access Pipeline, aka Bakken Pipeline, aka DAPL for short. On June 8th, the Iowa Utilities Board signed a final order greenlighting the $3.8 billion 1,168-mile pipeline set to traverse 4 states and 50 counties. Beginning in the Bakken oil fields in northwest Dakota and ending in Pacoda, Illinois, with a capacity of roughly 570,000 barrels of oil a day. And if you're wondering, the other 3 states have already given Texas-based Energy Transfers LP the go-ahead, and work began in North Dakota, South Dakota, and Illinois last month. But despite this bad news, activists and locals are not giving up. Quite the opposite, in fact. Ed Fallon, the director of Bold, Iowa, a pipeline opposition group, had this to say to the Associated Press. In the tradition of other great American struggles for freedom, from the Boston Tea Party to the March to Montgomery to the farm crisis, when farmers stood with their neighbors to block foreclosure auctions, we ask Americans passionate about defending our land and liberty to step forward to stop the Bakken pipeline. The group began a Bakken pledge of resistance, asking people to pledge their support and, if necessary, to risk arrest via acts of peaceful civil disobedience and blockades. As of the writing of this script, Bold, Iowa had gathered almost 400 signatures. Fuck yeah. For any viewers in that area, we'll include a link to that pledge in the show description. And you don't have to be a leftist tree hugger to join this fight. In fact, the fight against pipelines is one that brings people together from all parts of the political spectrum. And you can partially thank eminent domain for that. FYI, eminent domain refers to the government's power to take private property for public use in return for fair market compensation. It's typically been used to build bridges or roads, but since the 1950s, oil and gas companies have taken advantage of this power more than a handful of times. And this is bringing the right to property advocates to the side of the environmentalists. And in some places, like South Carolina, outright bans on oil company land seizure have been passed. Unfortunately, Iowa won't be lining up for a similar ban anytime soon. The governor is all for the pipeline, and one can only assume his house is nowhere near this toxic catastrophe. However, lawsuits against the Bakken pipeline's eminent domain seizure continue. As Think Progress reported, at issue is whether the pipeline company deserves eminent domain powers given that it's not a public utility. In addition, plaintiffs claim giving eminent domain powers for the Bakken pipeline is not a public improvement or serves any public use, according to court documentation obtained by Think Progress. Of course, Dakota Access, the subsidiary of Energy Transfer Partners, threw out some numbers about proposed jobs, neglecting to mention that these are, of course, temporary jobs, and that actually the real ongoing employment would more than likely come from oil spill cleanup, which there will be. It's essentially a statistical certainty. Last year, High Country News, a nonprofit news organization based in Colorado, reported on the frequency and effects of pipeline breaks. This map shows crude oil pipeline incidents from 2010 to 2015. And according to the Pipeline and Hazardous Materials Safety Administration, these spills and ruptures released over 7 million gallons of crude. Individual leaks ranged from a few gallons to hundreds of thousands of gallons. One of the largest spills happened in North Dakota in 2013 when lightning struck a pipeline, which leaked over 840,000 gallons of crude into a wheat field. Reminder, North Dakota is where the Bakken pipeline will originate, crossing the state before dumping, literally, into South Dakota. One of the organizations that has coalesced around the Dakota pipeline is the Bakken Pipeline Resistance Coalition. Primarily based in Iowa, the Bakken Pipeline Resistance Coalition represents landowners, community members, nonprofits, and interest groups united to stop the construction of the Bakken pipeline. And if you're also primarily based in Iowa, this Saturday along the Des Moines River, activists will get together for a canoe flotilla at the point of the river where the pipeline is supposed to cross. And you can get more info on that action on their site. As for the Dakotas, one of the organizations that has been very vocal about this in North Dakota is Respect Our Water, with a Z. Made up of the youth from the Standing Rock Sioux tribe, Respect Our Water is putting a young face on the impact of pipeline construction, making the point that This isn't just about oil right now. This is about water for generations. One you can live without, the other not so much. So far, several celebrities have also used their platforms to push this message out there, to which I can only really say, thank you, and it's about fucking time. Instead of being a billboard for Armani, be a billboard for some fucking change. Also on the Dakota front lines, the Camp of the Sacred Stones is a group of local natives and allies literally camped out in the projected path of the pipeline. But instead of me telling you about it, let's give them the floor for a couple of minutes.
Dakota Access has got their permits from the four states that it crosses through, but they're still hung up on the federal water crossing permits that are issued by the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers under Section 404 of the Clean Water Act. They need permission to drill underneath the Missouri River, which is where our camp is at. They plan on boring down 90 feet underneath the river and coming up on the other side. They say that this project has avoided all federal and native land, but they've completely ignored the fact that Standing Rock's water is impacted. It's just right downstream of the Missouri River, as well as most of the rural water systems for South Dakota and all the other reservations.
Hi, my name is Wiaka Eagleman. I'm from Rosewood Sioux Tribe. Camp of the Sacred Stone started on April 1st. It's been there constantly, people coming and going. We are currently training in nonviolent direct action. We are having teachings going on about our culture and our treaties. Just know everybody's welcome to come and support.
Hello, I'm Nakia American Horse. I'm from Campbell, North Dakota, located on the Standing Rock Sioux Tribe. We are opposing the Dakota Access Pipeline, not only because of the negative impact it's going to have on our reservations, but also the impact it's going to have on all who live and thrive and get water from the Missouri River. It is also in violation of Article 2 of the 1868 Fort Laramie Treaty, which states that we shall enjoy the undisturbed use and occupation of our homeland. And the United States Constitution states that the treaties are the supreme law of the land. And so we have the right to refuse this pipeline.
For more on the Camp of the Sacred Stones, visit their Facebook page at facebook.com/Camp of the Sacred Stone.